Good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Kelling, Director of Content and Community Partnerships here at WFSU Public Media. I'm also a Leadership Tallahassee grad, Class 28, and I'd like to welcome you to the 7th Annual Tallahassee Town Hall. Tonight's program is brought to you as a collaboration by the Village Square, City of Tallahassee, Leon County, the Tallahassee Democrat, Leadership Tallahassee, and WFSU. We are also deeply grateful to two generous sponsors of tonight's program, AARP Florida and Bible-Based Church. Thank you. There are many ways our guests in our studio and out in the community at large can participate in tonight's program. You can follow and participate in the discussion on Twitter using the hashtag capital TDVSQ. So that's TDVSQ. Via Facebook Live at WFSU Media. It will also be streamed at wfsu.org/live. On Thursday at 7 p.m., you can see the first hour of tonight's program on WFSU TV. And on the Friday night at 7 p.m., you can hear the audio on WFSU FM 88.9. The entire program will also be archived on WFSU.org later this week. It's now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panel for the evening as they are seated from left to right. So starting to my left, Jeremy Matlow, City of Tallahassee Commissioner, Seat 3. Elaine Bryant, City of Tallahassee Commissioner, Seat 1. Kristin Dozier, Leon County Commissioner, District 5. Curtis Richardson, City of Tallahassee Commissioner, Seat 2. John Dailey, Mayor of the City of Tallahassee. Jimbo Jackson, Leon County Commissioner, District 2. Bryan Desloge, Leon County Commissioner, District 4. Marianne Lindley, Leon County Commissioner at Large. Rick Minor, Leon County Commissioner, District 3. Diane Williams-Cox, City of Tallahassee Commissioner, Seat 5. Thank you all for being here tonight. And now, I'm delighted to introduce our moderator for the evening, Skip Foster, publisher of the Tallahassee Democrat.
Thank you. Oh, and thank you. It was my own guy gave me a little clap there. Wow.
He's going to be expecting a raise.
Calm down, everybody. Really, calm down.
I think that was staged.
Welcome to the Tallahassee Town Hall, which is part of the Village Square's Our Town series. I am Skip Foster, publisher of the Democrat, and I'll be moderating tonight's event with Leon County and Tallahassee City Commissioners. I'm going to be walking around a little bit, okay? So we're leaving this and going to this. And here's how this is going to work. We got a lot of you. We had a good turnout, and so and we got an hour for this part. So not everybody's going to get to answer every question. Consider yourselves having like a little chip stack of 3 or 4 chips, right? So if you want to get in and raise your hand, you're kind of putting one of those chips in, and you might not get in if you want to talk about something else you really want to talk about. If I start walking towards you, that means you're, going to have to spend another chip if you want to keep talking. I ended up in Gil Zipper's lap last year. No, I really didn't. Hi, Gil. Everything is fine. So we're going to get started here. By the way, you're seated with the mayor and chair and then kind of rough seniority. So if you were wondering what the code is, I've been trying to crack it. It's not alphabetical. It's not. Anyway, that's how they did it.
Okay.
So I'm interested in that. Apparently nobody else is. Okay, so Commissioner Matlow, since you're closest to me, I'm going to skip down to a question. You wrote an op-ed in the Democrat. Thank you for submitting that to us. And you talked a little bit about blueprint road projects and said, I want to quote you here, many of those projects were planned before ride sharing disrupted the way we view personal transportation. That seemed to open the door to revisiting blueprint priorities that were approved 5 years ago by roughly 2/3 of the county's voters. Is that what you were saying? And if not, can you clarify a little bit how you prioritize blueprint moving forward?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Skip. I guess really what I'm trying to open the door to the conversation of the city of Tallahassee is currently developing its 5-year strategic plan, but how far in the future are we really looking how we want to grow? We talk about being a multimodal city, and we've already seen challenges that have surfaced on how we get there with our bike transportation and scooter transportation. So I'm just trying to ask the bigger question of, do we want to continue to grow and spend our tax dollars in auto-dominated ways, or do we want to explore different forms of transportation and really look? I think if we have the conversation and see where we want to be in 20 years, then we can actually answer how we should be spending dollars now.
Okay, so blueprints, it sounds like you consider that to be malleable to some extent.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is.
Okay. Anybody with a different view on that? Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Skip. I was on the original Economic and Environmental Consensus Committee that conceptualized Blueprint 20 years ago. And at that time, the community was growing. The infrastructure was not keeping pace with the rate of growth in the community. There were arguments among the developers, the environmental community, the neighborhoods as to how we would grow. And so we came together and envisioned what Tallahassee would look like in 20 years and what the infrastructure needs were. And so we put that Blueprint 2000 plan together, went to the public with a request for a penny sales tax to pay for that, and Blueprint 2000 was born. And today, I think we've been successful in addressing those road transportation infrastructure needs then. We realized that as that is about to expire next year, we realized 5 years ago that we were going to need to extend that as the community continues to grow. And we went back to the voters, and they overwhelmingly supported that vision and those projects that were in that vision for how we would grow over the next 20 years. There was a lot of work put into that through the Sales Tax Committee that Steve Evans chaired and I co-chaired. Imagine Tallahassee was a central part of that. We took tons of public input to come up with those projects that would be funded over the next 20 years, and that's what the community overwhelmingly said they wanted.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying more of a follow the plan as opposed to straying from it
It's
approach.
what almost 2/3 of the voters in this community said they wanted, and
Okay.
so yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want to get in on that subject before I pivot? Commissioner Lindley, is that a little finger raised?
One chip, yeah.
Half
Well,
a chip?
I just wanted, I want to say the original Blueprint and the second one that was approved recently, I loved it because of its holistic nature, that it did rather look to the future, because every roads are not just about transportation. Each road is also incorporating environmental assets and recreation, including bicycling and pedestrian stuff. So they're not quite as, it's not quite as primitive as some might think to simply build roads, because there is a holistic plan. So it's part of a whole, and roads do take people where they want to go, and the connectivity piece too. And I would actually like to know who all here in the audience tonight arrived by Uber or taxi or
Scooter. Or
Okay.
pace
scooter.
bicycle.
So there's a practical nature to political decisions.
I understand. Okay, I want to pivot here to a slightly different part of our economic development, the status of economic development here, and I'm going to ask this of a newcomer and then a veteran. So I'm looking at Commissioner Bryant, Commissioner Desloge, newcomer in terms of public service. How would you articulate Tallahassee-Leon County's current economic development strategy?
I guess I'll go first. I think that we have a strategy that's really in process, because it is my belief that we have to develop a strategic plan that provides input not only from the city and county, but the school board and other vested entities within our community, such that we can move forward. I wanted to use a half a chip on that last question with the same kind of response, because if we don't plan for the future, And if we aren't nimble enough to respond to whatever is going on in our community, because nothing stays the same, then we will find ourselves doing things that we may have written 10 years ago that may not be applicable today. So I'll stop there.
Fair enough. Commissioner Desloge.
Okay. You know, we took a kind of a different direction here in the last couple of years with the new sales tax initiative. I mean, we were one of the first counties in the state to basically access a percentage of that sales tax revenue to use specifically for economic development. And I think we're kind of right on the beginnings of what should shape our entire economy going forward, because we've got some money for the first time and it's not cobbled together. In the past, under the old Economic Development Council's model, the city and the county would come to the table when we needed to. It was privately funded. It really it did okay. We could do better. So for the first time, we've got $100 million, I think, if I remember the numbers correctly, over the next 20 years that we'll be able to spend specifically on economic development. It puts us in the game. And that was a pretty bold statement for us as a community, because we're one of the first counties to have accessed that. So the new OEV, which has kind of eclipsed our Economic Development Council, I think with Kristina Paredes is going to do some great things. So I think we've got the ammo to do it. Let's just see where we go from here.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Skip. I think the jury's still out on it. I agree with Commissioner Desloge in that we've got the pieces are there. It looks like the outlook on this is being laid down, and we need to see how it comes through. One thing I've talked about in the past is being very strategic and using our competitive advantages that make us unique and have us cut above the fray from every other city in this nation that are trying to develop economic development opportunities. You know, the Mag Lab is one thing that Commissioner Dozier and the City and County Commission has been working on for many years, as well as other people throughout the community. That's something that's a good example. I know the Democrat has talked about it quite a bit. I did during the campaign. That's exactly a perfect example of a unique competitive advantage that Tallahassee and Leon County have that we should be doubling down on. Those specific narrow range of businesses and prospective investors that are looking for that type of technology can't find that technology anywhere else in the world to the extent that they can here. Let's go ahead and be strategic and focused and try to bring those companies here.
So what does accountability look like in this segment, right? At what point do we say, if the scoreboard hasn't moved, this isn't working? How much time? What does winning look like? How do we judge whether our economic development efforts are succeeding? Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you. I would agree with Commissioner Minor's comment that the jury is still out to an extent, because we do have more work to do within economic development. I also agree that we've done a lot of work in recent years that has got us on a better track than we've ever been before. So what does success look like? One of the things that I'm not sure we've come to as a community is that success will not always look like a big win like a Danfoss Turbo Corps with a few hundred jobs. That's going to be one type of success, and I think the MAG Task Force through OEV is a good start to recruiting businesses that fit within something that we excel at and no one else does. We've never recruited with that kind of targeted focus. So I think that can be successful in the next few years. But the other type of success metrics are going to be entrepreneurial ventures, things like that. They're going to grow jobs more slowly, perhaps, but the numbers of people who can start businesses and stay in the community, we don't right now have enough resources for those second stage businesses. So we need to do more to attract and keep businesses here. But the success metrics are going to look a little different than where we used to think about just the big win in recruiting a company.
Mayor Dailey, there was some news made today at the airport advisory meeting. That group, in an unagendaed item, voted to endorse an airport authority. And I know there's some question about kind of how that was done, and you were going from something to something else and got there in the middle, and I think had some questions about how that happened. I want to give you a chance to kind of comment on that, and then piggyback on that. How does the airport and the land surrounding the airport fit into our overall economic development strategy?
Thanks for the question. Skip, thanks for hosting tonight along with WFSU and the Village Square. Specifically to the vote that was taken at the Airport Authority, I was not there for the discussion. I was not there for the vote itself. I got to the meeting late, so I don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about what went into their decision-making process because it wasn't on the agenda. But I can tell you that I think that you have a city commission. I'm looking at all my colleagues here, and the county commission as well, that is willing to entertain any and all options for all different aspects of our community. That is our job. And I think that when it comes to the airport in particular, we've got a hidden gem. We really do. Let me be very clear. The airport actually is successful. It pays for itself. It is not a drain on the general revenue of the city of Tallahassee. Operationally, I think we're doing a good job, and I think we could do better. And I think that it's one of the focuses of this city commission. I think we've got tremendous opportunity with the raw land around the airport that can be developed and used as a tool for economic development recruitment for this community, specifically when you take into consideration the fact that we have the international designation and we're moving forward, creating the free trade zone and all the aspects that come with that, that if we were to bring new businesses to this community or strengthen the businesses that we have that have national and international trade capabilities, it's going to be a wonderful tool for them. So I think our brighter days are still ahead when it comes to the airport. I'm very excited about our potential. I know that we're all focused on the airport. We all realize the amazing potential of it. But at the same time, make no doubt about it, we've got a good, financially solid airport that is operating very well on a regional level that we are continuously trying to make better.
Okay. Commissioner Williams-Cox, I want to give you a chance to get in here. You're the farthest from me. I don't want to leave you out. So hi down there. And airport, economic development, what are your views on those topics right now?
Well, let me just mention, start with economic development. Economic development looks different depending on where you sit. There are some sectors of town who would appreciate a little attention when it comes to economic development, and it wouldn't take an awful lot of money to do that. I believe that we have a lot of what we need to bring every side of town into the game of economic development if we were to look at it solution-oriented instead of, I have mine, now you got to get yours. And I'm not saying that anyone's doing that specifically, but when sectors of town are lagging while others are prospering, that does not give a good economic development look. We have to move as a community, and we're all a part of the same community. Now, no secret, I live on the south side of town, and that's where I've done a lot of work. The airport is on the south side of town, southwest. But our issues on the south side are not airport related. Some of us cannot afford to even visit the airport because of some of the living conditions that we have. So when we're going to talk economic development, we need to talk about making communities and neighborhoods holistic, so that we can bring in other industries and other opportunities to continue to grow the economic development. So my focus is really on how do we bring all of Tallahassee up and move it forward. The airport is a vehicle, but we have others that can be used to help do that.
Okay. Chairman Jackson.
Yeah, I hate to dovetail on my friend Mayor John Dailey, but the airport is, and where it's situated, it's actually in District 2, so I want to put that plug in, of course, for the west side. Diane. The opportunities offered there with the restructuring of the Seminole Golf Course, with the gateway projects that are going to allow people to access from the airport university facilities, as well as downtown Tallahassee, as well as FAMU's campus. All of the work that's going into that and at the same time going through neighborhoods where we're very careful. It's funny how these things kind of connect together with our blueprint projects, being very careful with Lake Bradford and some of those neighbors out there to provide just a phenomenal growth to the west side that hasn't seen that type of growth. Innovation Park, I think Commissioner Dozier mentioned Danfoss Turbocor has a 40,000 square foot facility that they plan on expanding, and the technology that they use is used in no other air conditioning and refrigeration factory or manufacturing in the world, as well as the Mag Lab and the FSU FAMU School of Engineering. I see on the west side and the airport opportunity finally present itself?
So
As our South Florida neighbors? The quick answer, I'm going to guess, is no. Well, there's a reason why we live up here and not down there. But growth, a steady growth, is important for us. And we attract a lot of people through the universities who end up staying here. I talked to a young man today and I said, you know, what brought you to Tallahassee? He said, school at first. And that was a perfect answer because it wasn't what kept him here. And so we do need to increase the population to take some jobs to bring in new ideas. We need to be able to keep new businesses. And a lot of that comes out of people who are recruited to the community either through the universities or other jobs. I think Choose Tallahassee is a real interesting venture to try to get retirees to come to our area because they don't want to look at South Florida as much as they used to. So we've got some benefit to that. The last point I'll make is that our job market is so phenomenally tight. The economic or the unemployment numbers may be shifting a little bit. I think the number's around 7,000 in our metro area that are unemployed, but contractors, others can't find workers, nurses, IT. So attracting more people will help businesses grow, help the economic development question you asked a few minutes ago. So we may not need to rush ahead like our neighbors, but we need to have some steady growth and do it in the right way.
Okay.
That's a good answer.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Bryan.
Let me follow up on that. I think that we have excellent educational systems, universities, and I think that we have excellent students who graduate. The question that we have to grapple with is how do we keep that talent in Tallahassee such that we will grow, but we'll grow with people who, in fact, have vested already into this community and find this a great place to stay and live and have their families grow here. So I think that it's not a yes or no. I think that small, large, in between is actually grounded in whether or not we as a community and as a city are willing to do whatever is necessary to keep people here in Tallahassee that graduate from our universities. I think that's one factor that we need to pay attention to.
Okay, Commissioner Williams-Cox and then Lindley.
I think that if you're not growing, and the way you measure growth is by population, if you're not growing, you're dying. And we don't want that to be the reputation of our community. But with the shrinkage of state government jobs, that has caused people to have to find employment other places. So we've had a net loss of what used to be our industry, state government. And when you have state employees who've worked so many years without a raise or cost of living increase, people are having to go find work other places as close as crossing the state line to work in Georgia because they pay better. So when we look at why we may not be growing as we should, we do need to look at what is the workforce. It's not all because we don't have the skilled laborers. We have them, but they're having to go elsewhere to earn a good living in order to be able to live and thrive.
Commissioner Lindley?
Well, a couple of points. I don't think we do have the skilled workforce here, not truly skilled workforce, that we need in a lot of arenas. I mean, it's one of the things the county's been working on is to try to evaluate the jobs that are going wanting for lack of skilled workers. But having said that, there is a piece that local government can do, and it's something called social infrastructure. Social infrastructure is things like Midtown and the Cascades Parks and the bikes and the trails and the outdoor recreation amenities that keep people who move here wanting to stay. It's kind of the sexy mojo of a community. It used to be called quality of life. When I was at your newspaper, I used to call it the Q of L, the quality of life shorthand, because that's why people love coming here. A community that doesn't grow dies. It gets very dismal and depressing, and the property values go down, and no boats are raised up. Social infrastructure does jazz up a community where people want to stay here because it's cool and it's interesting. And it takes advantage of our universities, and it takes advantage of our awesome climate. I don't use the word awesome much, but we do have a pretty darn good climate 9 months out of the year where people like to be outside. It's not just Bryan Desloge who's on his bicycles and canoes all the time. It's not me, but it's not just him. So that's an important part of it.
All right, I want to get Commissioner Matlow back in here because I started with you and then we've gone around. And I want to ask you, and I really want to hear from more, but I want Commissioner Matlow to lead this off. How do you determine, this is a little for you Trekkies out there, you might ring a little, how do you determine when the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few and vice versa? How do you figure that out as a leader?
That's an interesting question. I think largely the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. We're talking about growth, and I think that's a good lead into it, because we need to make sure, are we growing collectively, or are we growing further apart? And I think in a lot of ways, people feel like we are growing further apart. We're not investing in certain communities, and we're seeing certain industries and certain businesses get the focus, but are we really trying to keep local money in local hands? Are we trying to invest in the people who already appreciate Tallahassee and want to grow along with it? So I think when we talk about the needs of the many and the different things we offer, we need to make sure we're casting a wide net, wider than maybe some of the same channels we've gone through to bring more people in, so we can all be part of the prosperity as we start to grow.
Commissioner Richardson, how do you balance these things?
Thank you, Skip. It's a very difficult balance, but one of the things that prompted me to run for the City Commission after my involvement with Blueprint 2000 and the Sales Tax Committee, 22 years ago, my wife and I made the decision to build our house on the south side of town. We've lived there since then. We've raised our children there. But what I've seen in this community in all the years that I've been involved is a tale of two cities, actually. Growth and development and revitalization happening in the north, in the east, somewhat in the west, but our central city and the south side of Tallahassee has been left behind. And I have championed, along with others, I won't say that I'm the only one, but I have championed equitable development in this community, where I saw that it has not been happening. With Blueprint, with economic development and revitalization, I'm glad now that through our CRA and some of the other mechanisms that we have in place, there is an increased focus on ensuring that residents of the south side of Tallahassee and our central city, Frenchtown, Griffin Heights, that their needs are being addressed to some degree. Are we where we need to be? No, but at least we've begun that process, so that regardless of where an individual lives in this community, they can feel like they live in an all-America city, that Tallahassee has been twice designated. And I'm not sure that right now there are some residents in this city who would not say that. And we've got to address their needs across the board.
Okay. So how's everybody feeling about their chip stack right now? Everybody feel like we're pretty even? Okay. I want to make sure our county folks are involved here, and so we'll start with Commissioner Jackson on this one. Leon County extricated itself from the CRA in the face of a looming homestead tax referendum, which I think everyone assumed would pass. Didn't. So is the county now willing to re-entertain the CRA? And if not, what's the reason why the county wouldn't want to get back involved with that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that.
That was a really hard one? I wouldn't pick on anybody
I will tell you that at this time, our county is not interested in rejoining the CRA. I won't speak for every commissioner on the dais, because they will speak for themselves. Yes, there was anticipation of the impending homestead exemption tax passing, but at this time there is not a plan to rejoin the CRA.
Why?
I would say that at the time that we diverged ourselves from that relationship, that there were things that were in contrast to the mission and the vision and the goals for Leon County.
Okay, well, we're going to keep going. So what were some of those things?
I think that there's a place for the CRA, and I think that the monies that are spent by the CRA should rightfully go to the blighted regions that it is designated for. I don't know that it has always been proven that the money went into the right areas or into the right neighborhoods or the right places where it should have been spent. I will not use being more of a rookie commissioner as a excuse. I promise you that. But but I just, at the time that we decided to, I guess, exclude ourselves from the CRA, it was the most sound decision for us as a body.
Okay. So there's 4 other commissioners up here. Is there anyone who is in favor?
I certainly didn't speak for any of my other county commissioners if they'd like
Anybody,
to jump
any
in
of you,
at
I
this
see
point.
Commissioner Dozier, are you in favor of getting back in? And if not, why not?
Actually, I believe, the one county commissioner who voted against moving out of the CRA. I do think the CRA has struggled for a long time for various reasons, not for lack of good effort on behalf of the staff and the board. I think in recent years, we dug in pretty deep and we had a lot of debates about how to realign the CRA's mission and really help those neighborhoods that Commissioner Jackson mentioned. For my part, the Amendment 1 issue was understandable. We would have taken an enormous and permanent hit to the county budget if that had passed, so I'm thankful that didn't. On the other hand, the county is still contributing to the CRA, and if we're contributing taxpayer dollars that are coming into the county, I think we should have a seat at the table. Last comment on this, there is actually a bigger issue there. We are one city and one county, and I may be in the minority at this table, and I can understand why my city friends, you know, it's easier right now to work just as the city commission, but we do have overlapping issues. We always will. I don't mind the 2 governments at all. I think we kind of have checks and balances, but we should be looking for ways to work together more often. And so I was disappointed that this was one area where we were making some progress, and for us to take a step back, in my opinion, by separating, it was the wrong direction.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because a year ago, Commissioner Desloge, when it came to the issue of consolidation, said, "I'd love for us to take a half day or a day and discuss it," and there was widespread willingness to do that. How did that go?
Well, we had the thing called an election, kind of slow down
Okay, so
the conversation
that didn't
and
happen,
reshuffle
it sounds
the
like. Why didn't that happen? And is that still something that should happen and is a discussion that's worth having?
I'm glad you got this.
I'll jump in. Yeah, no, I mean, so Commissioner Dailey and I got elected at the same time, and that dovetailed both of our chairmanships. We talked a lot about functional consolidation. How do you bring the 2 bodies together? We had a good relationship at one point. It kind of got frayed as things got a little crazy. I'm excited with having John over at the city now that we can start back down that path. I think it's irresponsible as elected officials if we don't have these discussions. The conversation about airport authority earlier, I mean, I don't know if it's the right answer, but there are people smarter than me out there that can sit down and run the traps on it and say, you know, it would lead to a benefit for our community, and here's how it works, and here are the things you could do. But if we don't have those discussions, similarly to consolidation in some form or fashion, whether it's partial or full, you know, this has been ongoing debate in this community. Does it work financially? Does it work efficiency-wise? I don't know the answer. But certainly we should be talking about it, and we should get together and have a discussion with somebody that knows how that type of thing works and says, yep, absolutely, in 5-10 years you'll be a better community. And you can argue both sides of the point, but we're a unique, specific set of
Okay, Mayor Dailey and then Commissioner Richardson.
Yeah, look, this is an exciting time in our community. I think the relationship between the city, the county, and the school board is the best it's been in decades. We have started a conversation amongst the leadership, and as Jimbo rolls off as chair, Bryan will be at the table as the chair of the county commission as well. Our conversations and our level of communication are seamless, 100% open. We've had 2 meetings with the full leadership of the city, the county, and the school board, and the ideas that are being discussed are very innovative on how to move this community forward. We have shown that we can work together and that it can work in a positive way. The planning department is a prime example of a joint department between the city and the county that functions perfectly well. OEV is another example of the intergovernmental agency of the 2 governing bodies sitting down and can work through these issues together. Yes, I think it is very appropriate for us to continuously check all of the services that we provide, respectively as a city or county, to see where we can work together in a functional, consolidated manner. It only serves the citizens that much more if, in fact, it is a true fit to be able to move the community forward.
Before Commissioner Richardson goes, anybody not willing to talk about consolidation in any form? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Skip. I think that Mayor Dailey has made an excellent point. We are working together as two local governments, three now with the school board included, working better together and coordinating our efforts than we have in the 40 years that I've lived in Tallahassee. The reason I'm against consolidation, I lived in the Jacksonville area when Jacksonville, Duval County consolidated. I know the reasons they consolidated, and it had a lot to do with who the majority of the population in the city of Jacksonville was at the time, and how their votes through consolidation got watered down. And now, if you look at downtown Jacksonville, which used to be majority African American, you will be hard pressed to find African Americans in downtown Jacksonville other than at the bus terminal or the homeless shelter. And the promise that was made to the African American communities in Jacksonville 50 years later has never been fulfilled in Jacksonville. I think that if consolidation was the answer, we'd have more than one consolidated government in the state of Florida. The fact that we only have one, and even now they're looking at revisiting consolidation, because I read recently where the majority of the city of Jacksonville now is becoming majority minority with the influx of Hispanics and Asians into that community, and now they want to revisit consolidation even now. So I think that it would not serve the African American community well in Tallahassee because we're at a place now, again, where we've got African Americans elected on our city and county commission, our constitutional officers, and to go back after that kind of progress has been made in our local community, I just don't think would be in our best interest.
Okay, so we're gonna introduce a new feature to the forum, and that is a little quick fire round, borrowing from our editorial board meeting. So just to, if you have not been to one of our editorial boards, these are very, very short answers, okay? A sentence is almost too long. So, and I'm not asking you what's the theory of life or anything, so you should be able to answer these quickly. We're going to start down here at this end because we're picking on Commissioner Matlow by having him go first all the time. Not counting family, staff, and deities, who are your one or two most trusted advisors right now?
Well, you eliminated a lot of people. My best friend.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Minor.
Without the exemptions you already
Yes.
pulled from us, I rely on a lot of different people, not to any one great level of depth.
Okay. So far, no names. Commissioner Lindley. I'm going to break the trend.
I rely on the written word and my husband, Charlie. Great.
Candy family.
That's pretty much, I'm pretty sure he's a member of the family. But that's
He
okay.
is. I'm sorry. I forgot the rules.
That's all right. You've already
word.
gone past your
I'm back
word
to the
limit.
written word.
Okay.
Authors.
Commissioner Desloge.
I'd pick Steve Evans, who's in the audience tonight, as one of my advisors, who I've known for 25 years probably, and John Lewis, who was business school professor of mine who helped start Superloop here, both of whom have fought the fight.
Great. Commissioner Jackson.
Mary Ann's husband, Charlie.
Is there some announcement here?
So that's how
We
it
have a
works.
winner.
We're very close.
Close circle of friends that have long-time ties to Tallahassee and have differing interests for different reasons.
Great. Mayor.
Yeah, I would say outside of family, staff, and religion, I've got a close circle of friends as well. that I
Okay.
trust.
Commissioner Richardson.
Outside of family, because my wife is certainly my most closest advisor. She hears me talking to myself in the bathroom in the mornings and asks me what I'm talking about. But no,
What
I have
are you talking about?
trying to solve all the issues that face our community.
What do you talk about in the showers the next week?
But no, I have a very good friend, Alan Stux, who whenever I feel like I need to talk with someone and get some sound advice, he's
Alan
always
Stutz.
there for me. Alan
Great.
Stutz.
Commissioner Dozier.
This is absolutely not because you're here. I would say it the same, Tallahassee Democrat and WFSU, because I can't just listen to two people.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I know.
Commissioner Bryant.
Trusted advisors and my pastor, R.B. Holmes Jr.
Okay, great. Commissioner Matlow.
Well, now I'm last, and everyone already took my myself, but I'll say,
Trying to help you.
Just say Mary Ann's husband.
I'll say neighborhood association leaders and those opinion columns in the Tallahassee Democrat.
Okay, great. How would you rate, we'll start back with you now, how would you rate the job so far of Tallahassee's most famous resident, the governor?
6.2.
Oh, great. A number is great. 6.2. Commissioner Bryan.
Scale of 1 to 10, is that our scale?
It can be letter
All right.
grade, it can be anything.
I would definitely say at least a 7.
Okay,
Surprising, good, and optimistic.
okay, that's great. Commissioner Richardson?
Same thing. I think he's made some decisions here recently in terms of the environment and some of his appointments that surprised a lot of us. And
Okay.
so I think he's doing a good job thus far.
Mayor Dailey.
I think he's doing very well, and I am thrilled at the level of interest he has in the Tallahassee community and the fact that he is committed to raising his kids in Tallahassee as well.
Commissioner Jackson.
Again, I think he's doing a great job with initiatives, but we don't issue grades before the 9 weeks. And my other job is,
Nice, the school teacher.
Commissioner Jackson is winning the quick fire.
I think he's exceeding everybody's expectations. Everybody categorized him as hard right, and I think the fact is he's pivoted to the middle.
Okay, Commissioner Lindley?
Yeah, I like him. I think he's surprising everybody. I'd give him a 7.75.
She was calculating that over here,
Commissioner
too.
Minor?
You know, I had expectations that were low when I saw the commercial about building the wall, but since then, I've been pleasantly surprised, and I'm very hopeful.
I'll let you know when I meet him.
Okay, fair enough. What, I remember, quick fire, okay? So I'm not asking you to explain your position or anything. I just want you to identify the issue we don't spend enough time talking about in this community.
Poverty.
Commissioner Williams-Cox, poverty. Commissioner Minor.
Bringing in the developers that invest in projects together with the advocates for neighborhood preservation and the environment.
Collaboration.
Collaboration.
Okay, Commissioner Lindley.
Poverty.
Commissioner Desloge, issue we don't spend enough time talking about.
Intergovernmental cooperation.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson.
education is connected and a key to crime, poverty, and so many other things.
Okay, Commissioner Dailey.
Mental health.
Okay, Commissioner Richardson.
I would agree with poverty and economic segregation, but I would also include the resegregation of our schools.
Okay,
Thank you.
Commissioner Dozier.
Could go with any of those, but I will add regionalism, how strong
Okay.
our region should be.
Commissioner Bryan.
I'll add strategic planning.
Okay, Commissioner Matlow.
Poverty.
Poverty. Okay, last one. What is, and I'm going to start in the middle here because Commissioner Williams-Cox and Matlow are getting put on the spot too
Hey,
much.
we're holding it down, though. We're
So
holding
I
it
know,
down.
I'm just looking out for
We
you.
got the poverty end caps. over
Mayor,
here.
what is a strength of Tallahassee Leon that does not get enough publicity?
Our people.
Okay, Jackson.
Relationships.
Desloge.
The outdoors, the rivers, the trails, the national forests that we've got here that go unnoticed.
Okay, Commissioner Lindley.
Charm.
Charm.
Yeah.
Commissioner Minor.
I see it every day. It's the commitment of the people who live here to help each other in making this place even better.
Williams-Cox.
Neighborhoods.
Matlow.
Yeah, it's the friendliness of our community.
Okay, Commissioner Bryan.
Add on our hardworking staff.
Okay, Commissioner Dozier.
Those businesses not research related, divvy up socks, pizza shops, all kinds of businesses that are really the backbone of the economy.
Okay, did I start with you?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Richardson.
Our neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods. Okay, great.
Hey, we all caught that pizza shop throw down there. Matlow. We got that.
A shameless plug.
It wasn't as good as Commissioner Jackson. He would have gotten a laugh for that one.
Okay, feel free to just talk amongst yourselves. Like,
Hey, what's up, Josh?
Politicians.
We
What
told you we
happens
were
when you
getting
put
along better.
politicians in front of mics?
moderators are overrated.
Who's in charge?
What'd you think of the quick fire? Huh? Not bad, right?
Like it.
All right. So that's it for the quick fire. Let's move on as we are moving towards the end here. You talked about regionalism,
Yes.
and I want to talk about Hurricane Michael. What impacts have you seen? So this is kind of less opinion and more your expertise. How has and will Leon County be affected by the ripples that come to us economically, sociologically, and in any other way from Hurricane Michael? And what should we be doing right now to prepare for those folks? I'm going to start with Commissioner Dozier and then head to Commissioner Richardson.
Very timely. So the ripple effects are wide, and I don't think we will see them all immediately, have seen them in the last 6 months. From the industry, from people leaving the area, tourism impact, but we could even drill down to something that we've been considering on our agendas, our homelessness question. We get homeless folks coming from a lot of our surrounding counties. Anytime there's pressure on families, individuals in our surrounding counties, it does affect our human services as well. We are the regional hub. I was recently elected vice chair of the Regional Planning Council and asked to set up a task force to look at long-term recovery. This has been in motion while the Senate just introduced their bill that has a task force as well. But the Regional Planning Council, we do see a role, and I was on a conference call today, to pull together all of the recovery coordinators from our various counties in our 9-county region and make sure that we are having a regional focus. Economic development to deal with the foreign trade zone, the freight logistics zone, attracting manufacturers, trying to focus on agriculture with FAMU, others. These are regional benefits that will strengthen the economy, and they will strengthen us in Leon County and Tallahassee, too.
Okay.
Yeah, although the effects of Michael will be many over probably decades, Skip, I think the two are those people who are moving to our community, that we will have to address their needs if they aren't able to find adequate housing and jobs and be able to afford health care. But the other, in my role as a staff person at Lively Technical College, is the depletion of our skilled workforce, because so many of our construction trades workers and electricians and plumbers, HVAC technicians have moved west to address the issues there. And so it is going to be difficult for us. I'm trying to get a roof done on my house, and the roofer is telling me he won't be able to get to me for 2 more months because he's got 27 projects ahead of me. So it's going to drive up the cost of those services and the time that it takes for us here in Tallahassee and Leon County to have those services performed.
So what do we do about that? What is the work that has to be done? How do we prepare?
Well, I think one thing is to encourage more of our young people to take advantage of the training programs that we have at Lively Technical College, where we train electricians and the construction trades workers and the HVAC technicians, because that's a tremendous need in this area, and that is going to have to be one of the next major conversations that this community has, is how we start to interest our young people in those positions and getting the training that's necessary. The jobs are out there, Skip. We just don't have that skilled workforce. And I know the mayor has taken an initiative also in terms of the heavy equipment operators. But we just don't have that trained workforce to assume those jobs of the people my age who are about to retire that's doing the work now.
Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Skip. One thing I want to do is kind of recognize Leon County, and all this work was done before I got into office, about FEMA designating Leon County as the very first hurricane-strong community in the entire nation. So that represents a tremendous amount of work that my colleagues on the county commission, as well as county staff, Vince Long, our county administrator, have done to help make this community as resilient as possible. Now, after every hurricane, including Hurricane Michael, we have an after-action report where the county commission reviews what county staff has identified, things that could be improved upon from the last hurricane. We've had 3 in the last 3 years, so there's a silver lining in that Leon County's become very good at responding to natural disasters. There's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, there were 1,200 homes that were damaged in the wake of Hurricane Michael in Leon County alone. So, your question about, how can, and Commissioner Richardson's point about, how do we facilitate people's roofs being repaired sooner? How can we encourage those businesses to stay here and have a cadre of those types of work going on? I think it's helpful.
Okay, Mayor Dailey, then Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Well, not to repeat what everybody said, but yes, those that are experiencing homelessness, those that are in need of new job training because of where they lived has now been completely, they're displaced because of the storms. But let me add on this. I am very proud to live in a community that is recognized nationally as one of the most giving communities. I mean, we live in a community that still, to this day, every week we have people traveling to the Panhandle on their own time, on their own dime, to volunteer and to help out. We live in a community that just last night, the county commission stepped up to the plate to help those that were affected by the tornadoes. And I haven't had a chance to see you yet, but thank you. Go above and beyond to help our fellow citizens. We live in a community, and I'm proud of the city, that through our mutual aid agreements, we send over our workers, whether it's in the utility department or whatever department it is, to help other communities rebuild. This plays right into regionalism and being a strong partner on a regional basis. Heaven forbid, if we were in that situation, it's good to know that they would come and help us as well. But I'm really proud of our community, who we are and what we stand with. We've got to keep pushing forward with job training. We've got to keep pushing forward with our services for those who are experiencing homelessness and mental health as well.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Two real quick things. I think that we need to focus on getting training and skills not only to the young people, but to those who are young at heart and still have years of work left. We're able to learn and do some of these things, and we have a cadre of individuals who are returning to our community. Some call them ex-felons or whatever. They're returning to our communities. Let's get them trained to do some of this work so that we can prevent them from going back to prison. So there's an opportunity to not just look at the young people, because young people do what young people do, and that is whatever they want to do. And and the other thing is that we've got to deal with people who are having psychological concerns and issues as a result of what happened with Michael. It's hard to live through a storm or something like that and survive it when others around you did not survive. You're having some feelings that you need to talk to somebody about. The tornado that came through the other night, we're seeing on television some of these folks. Some of those people I know personally because they're my sister's in-laws. They had gone to a funeral, so they're dealing with grief, and they come home, get ready to go to bed. A tornado comes and takes their house away. Had they gone to bed, they would be dead. So we've got to grasp and help people stand back up after being punched in the stomach so many times. So we got to think about those soft issues as well.
Commissioner Desloge, we've got about a minute left.
So Leon County's out about $12 million for Hurricane Michael on a $250 million budget. Gulf County has a $50 million budget and is already out $100 million. This is going to impact those counties west of us generationally. I had a discussion earlier today about the homeless shelter, and they said, well, you're just bringing in people from the outlying counties, and you know what? If we can help them, we should. And frankly, I know Senator Montford has some legislation he's trying to drive through as far as getting, and I think everybody's supportive of that. We need to make sure we pull as hard as we can for him, too.
Is there anything specifically we should be doing that we're not in 20 seconds?
You know, we actually won from this. Bed taxes were spiked. There are a lot of businesses that actually benefited from it, I hate to say it, and that happens in these disasters. But to the extent we can reach out, I think we should.
Okay. Do I need to climb back up on the podium? No, I can do it right here, but let me make sure the WFSU logo is perfectly run. Thank you to our commissioners from Leon County and the City of Tallahassee for this portion of our town hall. This concludes our broadcast of the Tallahassee Town Hall on WFSU Public Media. We will be continuing our discussion with questions from this fabulous audience that is here today in an extended version which can be seen on Facebook Live and online. The full program will be archived online and available later this week on WFSU.org. Have a great evening to our TV audience, and we'll continue here shortly on live. Thank you. Good evening and welcome back to the online stop sign from the production guy. Welcome back to our WFSU Village Square Town Hall, sponsored by the AARP and another sponsor who doesn't have a banner up, so I can't remember who that is right now, and I don't have my cheat sheet. Who is it, Village Square?
Bible-based church.
Bible-based church, of
Pastor
course. They
Derek
sponsor
McGee.
it every year. See, live TV doesn't have to be so scary, does it? Okay, so this is the question from our audience. These are folks that worked all day, have kids probably getting taken care of, but they care enough about their community to show up and participate with their elected officials. So that's an amazing thing in and of itself. And now they have composed some terrific questions for you to answer. So we'll get right going. Some of these are to specific ones of you, and others are just general. And so the first one is to anyone who wants it. Purpose-built communities have had a huge success with private donor involvement. How do we get the private sector money involved with the purpose-built project? Who would like to take that?
I'll start.
Commissioner Richardson.
Well, you know, Skip, I know the chamber, when they formed their work group, study group, and were discussing the issue of consolidation, came to the conclusion that there were other issues more pressing in this community that had to be dealt with before we could even get to any type of conversation about consolidation. And one of those was the economic segregation that we see in our community. And so I'm hoping that they will come forward now with a plan financed by the private sector that will begin this community moving forward toward addressing that issue.
Okay. Anybody else want to get in on that? Commissioner Williams-Cox?
I alluded to earlier that we have most of what we need in order to move our community forward and to equalize the economic development. We just need to dig deep, look within, and instead of pointing to there it is, let's point to what can we do to help eliminate poverty.
Okay. Commissioner Minor?
You know, I used to do public policy development for a living, and we used to look at states and local governments that have already tried things that have worked. And you can learn a lot by that, and it's really compelling to find an approach that's already worked. And that was the thing that I found most compelling about purpose-built communities, is that they have a proven strategy with evidence that has dramatically helped these other communities. And we've been talking for years in this community about how to deal with poverty. And so I've been highly supportive of it. I hope that my colleagues in the city and county commissions will support it too, because I think of all the things that have been on the table over the last few years, this I think holds the most promise.
Okay. Anybody else? Commissioner Dozier and then Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you. I think the question about how to get the private sector engaged is really critical for purpose-built communities. And I'm going to guess that there are people watching, maybe in the audience, maybe elsewhere, that don't know what that is. So I think part of it is education. We have seen numerous events in this town for different nonprofits, for different organizations that raise a lot of money, and that actually raise the money that the committee is coming to the city and county to ask for staff. So I would like to see more effort, and I think part of that is education. We need to tell the story, and Commissioner Minor's right, of purpose-built, of the success they've had in other communities. This is incredible opportunity for us to be selected as a purpose-built community. We need this. But I do think when we as commissioners on city or county are asked to fund so many nonprofits, so many needs in our community, I would like to see the private sector step up, and if we need more education on this piece, that's what we need to do, all of us and the committee.
Okay. Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, when we're talking about poverty and issues like this, we all have to work together. So I think what the city government can do, there's certain things in infrastructure that they're meant to invest in, but we really need the private sector to come on board. And Mayor Dailey said we're one of the most giving cities. I think GoFundMe said that too. So the money's in Tallahassee to want to do the right thing. A lot of people that I've reached out to to ask why they weren't involved with purpose built have said, I've never been asked. So we need a leader in place who's willing to, go out and get those funds to really get that started.
Okay, anybody else want to get in there? I'm going to move on to another terrific question. The city and the county have been conducting community workshops to solicit feedback and ideas on the comprehensive plan. As the 65 and over population grows in Tallahassee and surrounding communities, how will we address the housing, transportation, and health needs of those over 65, especially those in rural areas outside the city center? Commissioner Jackson, you're nodding your head.
I'd love to jump in here because the district I represent is a fairly rural district, although it does include some of FSU's campus as well as the Pensacola Street and Tennessee Street corridor. This is a especially dear topic, particularly because I have an elderly parent who is currently facing some of these same challenges that you're talking about. Being able to make it to doctor's appointments, being able to get the type of care while they're located at least 30 minutes from the center of Tallahassee or medical services. I see it as a challenge not only for the county but also for the city if we don't make these seniors that have given so much. I think all of us or several of us were able to participate in the Meals on Wheels volunteer program a couple of Mondays ago to see just how important and how vital these services are, where people are depending on meals to be delivered to their homes on a daily basis, a hot lunch and a dinner. You talked about transportation needs, feed needs, and medication needs. As we do get medicine, obviously, and technology allows us to live much longer and much more productive lives, but how are we going to address these things? It's a great question, and I wish I had the answer, but it definitely needs to be on the topics or on the tongues of the leaders here in Tallahassee and Leon County.
Okay, Mayor Dailey?
Well, I agree with the chairman. Specifically for the comprehensive plan, we need a comprehensive plan and we need a land development code that specifically serves the community and make sure that it's on track. When we have a comprehensive plan that was developed 30, 40 years ago, has been amended a dozen times every year, since its inception, is that truly a comprehensive plan that is serving the community? I would argue no. That's why we're having the rewrite right now. But I think that there's a larger issue which you're addressing that does not necessarily fall into the comprehensive plan or the land development code as much as it is the day-to-day logistics of serving the citizens. And this is where, I'm looking at Commissioner Matlow, who's got some great ideas, and I read his op-ed the other day in the paper. Let's take an out-of-the-box view at how we provide mass transit in this community. There are several communities that are partnering their mass transit up with ride-sharing opportunities for either those with disabilities or those that cannot drive. Makes it more efficient when the pickup, instead of the 20th century model of us sending buses specifically to people's houses to pick them up for a specific ride. Is it more efficient? Is it more cost-effective if we do team up with a ride-share to be able to provide that service? I don't know, but I do know that you got a commission on the city and the county that is interested in entertaining these creative ideas to solve our problems.
Okay, let's move on. This is a question from a Florida State student.
Thanks, Stanley.
Why are city commission meetings held at 4 p.m. and county commission meetings held at 3 p.m. when the average work or school day occurs between 9 and 5? What can be done to change this to make these important decision-making meetings accessible to all communities and to more people? Anybody have any ideas on that? Commissioner Dozier, and then
I'll jump in.
Desloge.
I am really excited by the conversation in the last few months on both commissions about increased public access and working together. To go to that question specifically, I don't know the history of why commission meetings start at 3. I know that's typical for a lot of counties and perhaps cities as well. Mm-hmm. We always do public hearings at 6 for that very reason, and so I think that may be an interesting question. I will say, when I was running for office and watching county commission meetings, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Desloge and now Mayor Dailey, they were there until 10, 11 at night. So if you started a couple hours later, that would have been challenging. Our meetings are tighter now, so maybe we could do something. Last little plug here, just Tuesday night, we approved an item on a number of different public engagement issues, and one of them that was really big for me is a cord cutter. I don't have cable TV. We don't have public access for county commission meetings on, or we didn't up until, or we don't now, we will in a few months, for those of us who don't have cable service. In a few months, we will provide access on all of the streaming devices. So that's going to be really good to increase access for those who can't make it to the meetings.
Okay, Desloge, then Matlow.
Sure. I've been to every 50 state, all the 50 states talking about counties, and they meet in the mornings, they meet at noon, they meet at night, and there's always going to be some component, unfortunately, of the communities that can't, it doesn't work for them. You know, they're a stay-at-home mom and they get kids at home at night. Pick one of 1,000 reasons. We've got paid staff that works typically 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, so generally trying to map within that is helpful. I will tell you, at least from the county's perspective, and I'm pretty sure the city's the same, you can go back and view any of these on spooled up kind of videos that we put up after every meeting. So you can go to the actual issue and see the discussion, and it's on TV. And it's, I mean, we've got 20 different ways that we try and get it out so that we make it as easy as possible, but there's not a quick answer.
Okay, Commissioner Matlow?
You know, if the people wanted meetings to start at 8 p.m. and go till 2 a.m., I would probably be for it. I would do it if that's really what they wanted. But I think really what people want is to be heard and to be able to participate. So I think we're trying to move in a different direction. We're taking some meetings outside of City Hall and going out into the public. You know, my office started open office hours, so you could drop in without an appointment and talk to us. We're doing a lot more town halls than ever before that are in the evening because it's not just about the 3 minutes you get right before decisions are made. It's really about engaging with your government officials. We need to know your opinion long before it even gets on our agenda. We need to hear from you early and often. So I think that would be one thing to switch on, but if we're not engaging, it won't matter in the end.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
The one thing that I would say to that student, to anyone else who has that question, let's talk about it. I don't know the history of how the times got set, but if it's going to work better for the citizens, let's talk about it. Let's try to find a happy medium to make it work for everyone.
Okay. Sure, Mr.
Just
Richardson.
very quickly, I would also add that each of us, I can speak for me personally, very accessible to the community. So if there are students out there who would like to come and have a more in-depth discussion about issues and policies, I'm open to it. I think all of my colleagues up here would do the same.
Okay. Next question is what measures will be taken? I think we're looking for specific measures will be taken to address food deserts, which disproportionately affect the south side of Tallahassee, but also food deserts that exist in other areas. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I think that one of the things that we need to begin to look at, it kind of came up during some of our recent town halls, is that on the south side of town, there are 2 grocery stores, there are some convenience stores. We need to look at opportunities of bringing additional grocery stores either into that area of town or around it to make it a little bit more accessible. We can also look at, we have gardens, that, Florida A&M has an extension where they grow fresh vegetables and fruit, and there's also a community garden that's on Orange Avenue. So those are the kinds of things that we need to continue to grow into the community and be able to, we can't have economic development, we can't have juice and milk available easily at grocery stores, so we need to have more companies willing to come and set up shop and sell groceries.
How do you do that? How do you convince?
We have many vacant buildings that, for instance, when Dixie left, that down off of Paul Russell, the Planet Fitness came, and I'm not sure if they're still there or not. Yeah. It's kind of hard to work out if you're really needing a grocery store.
Okay. Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Skip. It's a big problem. You know, the Winn-Dixie on Tharp closed, and that's an area that's underserved. And in my other job, I work at Second Harvest, the food bank, and during the holidays we had a mobile pantry there, working with a New Day initiative. We provide food for 900 families that showed up just near that Winn-Dixie that had closed. So it's a big problem, and so we need to look very carefully at where that need is. At Second Harvest, we're working with Feeding Florida to do a meal gap analysis that goes down to the census block level, much more granular than 32304. But we'll be able to finally see through some really sophisticated algorithms where at the block level we have a need. And then at that point, this is coming in the next month or so, we'll be able to take a look at where we need to provide some help and assistance.
Okay, that's great. Commissioner Matlow, and then Richardson, and then Bryant, and I guess, you know, nobody likes food deserts, right? I don't know if you're in favor of food deserts, so there's not a population.
Desserts maybe, but not
But, yeah, you know, Winn-Dixie didn't close because they were making money.
Right.
So how does that, what specifically can be done to change that dynamic so that either they don't close or you're able to recruit somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with laying out that it's unacceptable to have areas that don't have access to fresh food. So when we look at trying to attract local businesses or grocery stores, and they can't go there and make it work, maybe that's where we have to step in. There's a lot of investments the city makes that never supply a return on investment when we look at roads. So I think we need to not be afraid to explore opening a community-owned grocery store, helping a co-op get established, because just making money shouldn't be the end goal. Making sure people have access to food has to be the end goal. So if we can operate a grocery store, help a grocery store operate, and feed people, whether it makes money or not, we should do it.
Okay, I think it's Richardson and then Bryan. Yeah.
Yeah, what Commissioner Minor didn't mention, and it was reported in your newspaper recently, Skip, is that food insecurity is down in Leon County by 3.7%. The first decline in food insecurity in the last 8 to 10 years, 6% among children in our area. And so we are making some progress in that regard. I give a lot of credit to Second Harvest and some of the other food distribution organizations in the community. The city has its iGrow network, where we're providing fresh fruits and vegetables and other commodities to families. The sheriff has partnered with Second Harvest to do the same. And so there are efforts throughout the community to address the food deserts and food insecurity in our community, but certainly there's lots more work to be done.
Okay, Commissioner Bryant, and then Chairman Jackson, then Commissioner Dozier. We're on. This is a great question. Whoever that was, you've hit the jackpot.
I just want to add that the Winn-Dixie's, Publix, that the established, well, even beyond established supermarkets for our city, they have, I'm sure, some plan that tells them we must make ABC dollars or we're moving to another market. Now, we may not be able to change the dynamic of these national companies. However, we should, just like we do for everything else, actually put together a group of people in this industry and find alternatives to the large grocers and start in that direction. We can't get there just, talking about it. We need to develop the plan and start to implement it.
Great. Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I'm going to step out of the role of chairman for just a moment and brag a little bit about what Leon County Schools does to address some of the needs in probably the most important population outside of our senior population that we just discussed, and that's the children. There are 11 schools that are that qualify for federal Title I funds, where they get 100% free breakfast and lunch. And it's research proven that hungry children can't learn, and that children that are hungry have a hierarchy of needs where learning comes further down the list than lights on, something to eat, and being able to make it back and forth to the store. I want to also applaud the efforts of Second Harvest, who works closely with our school system, and Superintendent Rocky Hanna to provide meals, weekend meals for entire families, 50 to be exact, at a school the size of our school, where families are fed for an entire weekend. So the 3.7% is movement in the right direction. Someone talked about it being minimal movement, but it's not movement in the negative direction, and I think it's attributed to the effort of a lot of folks, and it's not something that's going to go away.
Dozier and then Lindley.
I agree with all the comments, we've brought up a lot of different issues. I can't say I agree with all the comments. I will put a pause there because I'll pick on you since Skip's doing it anyhow, Commissioner Matlow.
I'm not. That's not true. I'm
just
not
kidding.
On anybody.
So I think incentivizing, getting creative on how to attract grocery stores into different parts of town is what we need to focus on. I'm not sure if subsidizing those businesses is where we want to go. That's a long-term investment in something, and we need to be pretty careful with that. However, when Dixie did close, the CRA board worked to help get Piggly Wiggly to come in down at the South Monroe Shopping Center between South Monroe and Adams. If you shopped at that Winn-Dixie that was a couple miles away, and now the Piggly Wiggly, I would argue that it wasn't just about the bottom line. They probably weren't making a lot of money. We know that at the Winn-Dixie. But no one would want to shop there. It just wasn't maintained well. It didn't look like they had any interest in being in the community where they were. The Piggly Wiggly is really nice. So I do think that is proving that we can sustain grocery stores. The Greenwise Publix on Gain Street is getting a little closer to the south side where we have our largest food desert. There are other states that have looked at, in communities, stores that use dented cans, fruit that doesn't look as pretty as others. There's a lot of different ag products that go to waste because they don't look like the perfect round tomato. And the last piece on this is the regional. This touches on so many things we've talked about before. We need a regional food distribution hub to help our farmers. That's the economic development piece. And to get more produce into stores in the community. We can prove these economics work, and I think we can attract different types of businesses.
What's the difference between an incentive and a subsidy?
That is a really good question. To me, and I'm not looking at a dictionary or anything, so incentivizing a business to go into a particular area, and this is the work of the CRA, in particularly an area where you haven't seen investment, might give a tax rate for a certain period of time, might do some public infrastructure to help support that business. It has a cap on it. We know when we make that agreement what the defined terms are.
Right.
There are programs that pay people for getting jobs.
So a subsidy is different how?
A subsidy would be, we are going to buy this building, build this building, carry all the debt, or we're going to put money into operations forever.
A little bit of semantics there.
I know I'm going on. I do not think it's semantics,
Okay.
because getting that cap allows us to do other investments. We need a time limit on these things.
Okay.
We shouldn't be running a
Commissioner
business.
Lindley, and then I want to let Commissioner Matlow respond.
Yeah, one of the things the county's been very involved in is through its sustainability program, is, as Diane said, community gardens, a lot of the things that we do throughout the year and throughout the community on farmers markets, encouraging those, and the education about growing your own healthy eating. But I think it all gets back to job creation too. I mean, people need jobs so they can buy groceries wherever. I don't think we can really dictate to the public, to the markets too much. I mean, we can build infrastructure that would encourage maybe the public safety or transportation or something to grocery stores, but I don't think that's our game. I mean, I think it's more the educational piece and also the jobs, so people have jobs to buy groceries.
Okay. Commissioner Matlow, and then I think Desloge, yeah.
I mean, I think if we just look historically, we have the same areas that don't have access to groceries. So can we subsidize, can we incentive? Yeah, we could, but we haven't done it and they still don't have access. So if we're asking the actual question of what we're trying to solve, we need real solutions. So I think if a business needed a subsidy to actually stay in business there, an incentive's not going to help. They'll use up the incentive, and then eventually they'll go out of business. So what I'm talking about is, can we as a community invest and open a grocery store in an area that needs it? And if the concept gets proven that it's economically viable, it could be sold off to the private sector and they could take over. If not, we can maintain a grocery store to give people the food we need. But we have to realize food is a necessity that people need, the same way we invest in infrastructure, the same way we invest in water and roads. If food matters, we need to make sure people have access to it.
So let me make sure I understand. When you say we, the community, open a grocery store, what does we, the community, mean?
I mean, that's open. It could be the city of Tallahassee government. It could be a co-op, community-owned ran thing. So, but that's what we have to. That's the conversation we need to be happening: is where's the grocery stores need to go, and how do we get them there? And if we don't have everything on the table, we're not going to find a solution.
Okay, Commissioner Desloge.
So an incentive, in my mind, is a catalyst to get what you want. It's basically subsidy is just an ongoing kind of a float them. I would disagree respectfully with Commissioner Matlow. We can't get in the grocery business. Well, next thing we're going to be selling ice cream cones down on the corner. What we can do is look what happened on Gain Street with the new Publix. It took a long time to build a corridor through there and a lot of work to make that palatable for them to come down there. And they spent a lot of money and they've started. We went out and inventoried every piece of property that the county owned. I think the city's done a similar products, and I think the schools too. We ran a piece of property and then went out and walked around and said, would you like this to be a community garden? Would you like water there? Would you like us to level it for you? Can we help bring some people in to get that started? There's a limited amount of tools we can work with here, but frankly, the incentive in my case would be, how do we build something like a Gain Street from an infrastructure standpoint so that people want, the private sector wants to locate there. They have to make money.
Christina Lavender, are you still here that asked that question? Christina? Let me introduce you to next year's moderator, Christina. Great question. Great question. Okay, let's move on. This is a question for the mayor. And I love this question because, we're all talking about high-level economic development, and here's somebody that needs the government to solve a problem for them. Why aren't all city bus stops covered? What is the cost, and how is it decided which ones are and aren't covered?
I don't know. I don't have a price tag. I don't know.
Oh.
But it's a great question. Why aren't every bus stop covered? I don't know, and that is a viable question when you talk about infrastructure. If we are going to encourage people to take mass transit, the routes need to be as efficient as possible, okay? And we should take a hard look at our route system. But when it's August and it's either 103 degrees and there's no cover, who wants to ride the bus? If it's raining sideways, who wants to ride the bus? You have to provide appropriate shelter. It also gives you an opportunity to modernize your mass transit system, whether it's through free Wi-Fi or whatever it is, at those particular shelters as well. But we need to invest in our infrastructure to be able to move mass transit forward. Now, having said that, the city is concentrating on a new mass transit system that will be on the corner. It's Orange Avenue and Monroe Street.
Meridian.
Meridian, excuse me.
Super stop.
And it's going to be a super stop. And it's going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to transform our transit system on the south side, our route system on the south side. But absolutely, we need to go through and upgrade our infrastructure for mass transit.
Commissioner Richardson, then Williams-Cox.
And Skip, I can't say that I have all the answers to all those questions. We certainly have staff that does that. And I can assure you that they do it in a manner that's based on where the needs are and what we can afford. Star Metro is not a moneymaker. It actually has to be subsidized. And so that, I'm sure, budgetary issues come into play when you talk about sheltering every stop. And I know that we're trying to do that whenever and wherever possible, but budget issues do come into play.
Okay.
That is the question that I have when I see children waiting at bus stops in the rain and in the cold, sitting on the ground, where drivers got to pay attention and not hit them because there's nowhere for them to sit, even in inclement weather. So I would like to pose that question to school board as well.
Okay. Anybody else in on that? We have another infrastructure question. Is there a schedule for sidewalks on West Tharp from Godby to West Tennessee? It's a very specific area where Tharp becomes Bluntstown Highway.
I'll be happy to take that one, Skip.
Okay.
I sure hope there's a schedule for that. But like John, I don't know. But that is one of the things that I heard over and over again as I walked the neighborhoods during my campaign, and that was that there aren't enough accessible sidewalks. I'm extremely familiar with those same sidewalks, being a former student at Godby High School and occasionally using them to go off campus for lunch, but I always made it back for fifth period. That's a great question. There is a plan for sidewalk construction. I believe it's 7.1 miles of new sidewalk construction. Don't quote me on that, but 7.1 miles of sidewalk construction as part of the county's budget for this coming year.
Okay. Commissioner Desloge, then Richardson.
I'd say email us with a specific question. We can get you an answer. There is a very specific list that the city keeps. They've got $750 million of backed up sidewalks from last I remember. The county's probably on the nature of $100 million. But It's based on where are the schools, where are the neighborhoods, that we've got an algorithm that basically dictates what the priorities are. So, and and sometimes we fast track through it and try and advance fund it, but we could probably give you a pretty specific answer if you email any one of us.
Okay, Commissioner
Yeah.
Richardson.
I know that West Tharp is a blueprint project. We had that discussion just recently. They may have started the PD&E study, or it may be in the works, but West Tharp is a blueprint project, and so the issue of sidewalks will be addressed when that, of course, project comes online. I am familiar with that area. My daughters attended creative preschool in that area, and along Bluntstown Street, before it turns into highway on the other side of 90, there are walking paths, and you know that a sidewalk is needed because there are walking paths along the shoulders of the road, and so we are planning to address that. Sidewalks, again, are very expensive. We've got a priority list at this point, and I was told it's sacred and don't touch it or you open Pandora's box, but we do have, and so if someone wants that information, we can provide it, what our priority listing for sidewalks is.
Thank you. Great question. Okay, I got about a minute left, and I got a question for Commissioner Williams-Cox. What is your plan for instructing GIS for youth K through 5?
What is my plan?
Yes.
I don't have a plan.
Okay. Well, we kept that under a minute, didn't we?
Skip, what is GIS?
Geographical,
Oh,
yeah.
that GIS.
GIS,
Okay.
locations. I know what it is, but
Okay.
I don't have a plan. I didn't know I need to bring one.
Okay, so how are we? Do we have time for another quick one, or do I need to wrap up? Okay, that wasn't the right answer there, but that's okay. Let's see, last one. I've already asked that. Boy, I've got a long question here on Blueprint and the Wellani-Bannerman, the Northeast Corridor project. Is there anybody that didn't get a say on that when we talked about it the first time that has a 60-second answer? Commissioner Desloge bails me out. Thanks.
My district, and so we're at the very front end of a 18-month process as far as what this is going to look like. Unfortunately, occasionally people put renderings out there that show a potential a solution. I know the homeowners in Killarn have gotten a little upset because they think they're going to run a lot of traffic down Shamrock and Killarney. Nothing is cast in stone at this point, and I think the planners are trying to figure out taking in as much input as they can, running the traffic studies and trying to dictate how this works. We had a conversation earlier about a rendering that got put up a couple years ago, and the unfortunate family showed up for a meeting, and it showed the road going right through their house. So, we need to be kind of sensitive about the way we lay these things out, and in the end, we had to work around that, but people's expectations are if it's written or it's on a rendering, it must be true. So we're at the front end of the process. We need people to give us input. I can tell you email is by far the best way.
Was there like at least a nice sidewalk as it went through their house?
As Commissioner Lindley pointed out, every piece of the blueprint things we've got are trail-driven, sidewalk-driven. I mean, we really have done a nice job of beautifying the town.
Hey, look, what a great turnout by your city and county commissioners. Give them a round of applause.
Good job. Good job.
We're pretty lucky in this community not only to have commissioners that are willing to come out, but to have Village Square, an amazing organization that promotes civil discourse and lets us have a great conversation here without any of the name calling and ugly, hateful stuff you see with talking heads and online. And so thank you to Village Square and Liz for putting this together. Also to WFSU. WFSU, Bible-Based Church, AARP, Skip Foster with the Democrat. Happy to be here with you tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed it and have a great evening. Thanks for coming.
Good job. This is wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah,